After previously reviewing Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, I started thinking, are there any full motion video games that are genuinely good? I can remember enjoying a handful more than Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, but that is far from making them good in their own right. The first title that came to mind was Star Wars Rebel Assault, released by LucasArts for PC, Mac, Sega Cd, and 3DO in 1993. It had a lot going for it. A top-tier license, an experienced developer with a history of producing classic games, and a killer premise. Use a combination of content made specifically for the game, blended with actual music and footage from the original trilogy, to make an action-packed rail shooter. If any FMV game was going to be great, this had to be it. So, was it? In Star Wars Rebel Assault, you play the nameless protagonist, known only by callsign Rookie 1, and follow through what is essentially an alternative universe A New Hope, complete with a weird jaunt to Hoth to deal with Imperial recon droids and walkers, before Alderaan is destroyed, and a finale where you supplant Luke Skywalker in destroying the Death Star. The game uses portions of the score and video from the original trilogy, compressed very heavily. The video is good enough on PC and 3DO. On Sega CD, it's hard to believe LucasArts believed this was release-worthy. Many clips are compressed beyond comprehension. They work enough to establish atmosphere, but other pieces feel understandably off. Top-notch voice acting wasn't on the menu for video games at the time, and as a result the Empire doesn't have British accents. Instead, they sound like Kiwis.
Within moments, our troops will board their ship. We'll then have the stolen plans back in our possession.
I like your English accent.
New Zealand.
Oh, from New Zealand.
Yeah.
The Rebel Alliance also seems to take a meat grinder approach to recruitment. No one ever bothers to learn your name, and when you die, things roll along without much of a thought.
Too bad. That rookie had promised. We'll have to go it without him.
It seems rough, but at least it's that way when everyone dies.
Blue Squadron, we lost Sims. Abort. Abort approach.
How much you will enjoy Rebel Assault will be determined by how well it controls, and the three available options, GOG.com for PC, Sega CD, and 3DO, have different degrees of effectiveness. The PC version was originally designed to be used with a joystick, and by that I mean a flight joystick like this. And even though you can use a regular controller with an analog stick and calibrate it before each time you play, it simply does not translate at all. PC controls are absurdly twitchy, so much so that you can easily see that in this footage. Just watch as the ship rockets back and forth wildly at the very slightest push of the stick. Gently trying to aim and hit these tiny targets along the Star Destroyer is a crapshoot. Bigger targets are just as hard to hit if they are moving. All it takes is the slightest nudge to disengage a target lock. Frustrating doesn't begin to describe the feeling. The Sega CD has the opposite problem, with slow laggy controls impacted by the extremely low frame rate of its videos. Navigating the turns of the opening training level require insane levels of pre-turning. It's easier to hit enemies in combat, but catching up to enemies across the screen is really tough. The combination of laggy controls and terrible video renders the third level nearly impossible to finish. You can't tell where the walls are, which doesn't matter because the ship feels like it has a mind of its own anyway. Which leaves the 3DO of all things providing the best controls. Sensitivity on the D-pad is mild, and button presses are responsive. These controls, along with its graphics, which are only mildly downgraded from the PC, make the 3DO version the best version to play, which might be the first time in human recorded history that anyone has ever said that about a 3DO game. Rebel Assault features 15 levels comprised of flight, combat, target shooting, and one bizarre on-foot level. Of particular note is the on-foot level, which still controls like you are piloting a ship for some reason. There are also forks with no hint as to where the correct path lies. Get it wrong, and your best hope is being brought back to the beginning of the level. Otherwise, it's instant death. Imagine just barely getting to this level and getting a game over because of this. Unbelievable. The FMV backgrounds are a bit of a handicap in the flight handling levels, as they do not always provide clear boundaries for your spacecraft, but they do their job well enough. The important part is that the video is clear enough to provide an exciting background to what action there is. The shooting action never feels quite right, as your cursor seems to want to randomly lock onto and off of targets before you can fire. Even on the 3DO, it feels barely enough to get the job done. So is the 3DO version of Star Wars Rebel Assault a good game? Yeah, barely. This is not top tier gameplay. Nowhere near it. Full motion video backgrounds in these kinds of shooters are not the best option, but here they work because they are clearly serving a purpose. The atmosphere of the game is elevating, generating tons of nostalgia for the pre-special edition original trilogy. And despite the liberties it takes, this is the closest the video game is going to get to depicting A New Hope as a video game. It's a refreshing vacation to the days when Star Wars was just a few movies that were cool, and not an entertainment industrial giant announcing 9 new shows at once. 9? They announced 9 fucking Star Wars TV shows? Are they But to sum it up, Rebel Assault for the 3DO, and only for the 3DO, is about as good as a FMV game can get.